This episode is sponsored by Amy Wangard. The Amy Wangard Group is proud to serve Northeast Ohio and all YSU alumni. Ranked 15th out of more than 10,000 realtors across 27 counties, Amy and her team deliver trusted, professional real estate advice for your most significant investment. Through exclusive programs designed to simplify buying and selling, they offer solutions you won't find anywhere else, helping clients move confidently at every step. Their goal is to maximize your value and provide a smooth, stress-free experience that turns your dreams into reality. At the Amy Wangard Group, clients become family and every home is a new beginning. Learn more at amysguaranteed.com. Again, that's amyguaranteed.com. The link will be posted in the description. All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Penguin Nation Fans Podcast. As always, I am your host, Gino Leone. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Whitetown Nation. And don't forget to check out my work over on Redshirt Sports. Today, joining me is a very special guest. He has done significant work throughout the Youngstown community, serving as the pastor at Rising Star Baptist Church, a member of the Youngstown City School District Board of Education, and the Director of Player Development for the Youngstown State University football team. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome onto the show, Kenneth Donaldson. Kenneth, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today. How are you doing?
Man, it's a great day to be alive. I'm glad to be on.
Amen. Before we talk about your work at Youngstown State, let's hop right into it now. I'd like to start with your personal journey. You played college football at Middle Tennessee State University. You walked onto the team, eventually earned a scholarship, started your last 2 years there. I believe you were a part of a couple of conference championship teams there with Middle Tennessee State as well. You have said before in previous interviews that football helped save your life. Can you maybe expand upon that for me?
Yeah, so when I started playing football as a kid. I think I was 5 years old, and my older brother, who was an incredible athlete, Tony, I always wanted to try to outdo him. And when he started playing little league football, I wanted to play. And so, a long story short, I started playing football. I didn't have a whole lot of talent, but my work ethic always helped me in the long run. And so, football saved me. My mom was in prison most of my childhood. My dad raised us. And so, you know, I grew up a little angry kid. I was quiet, but I was angry. And football gave me that outlet where I could actually vent some frustrations and actually be rewarded for it. And so football really, really saved my life. When I went to Middle Tennessee State as a walk-on, I really want to play to get away from home. And I just knew that uh, getting away from home would be a better situation for me. So there again, football at Middle Tennessee saved me, man. I love the game. I love the discipline that's associated with it. I love the team concept, and everything about it. I think football is life. So it saved me. It helped me channel my anger into something that was positive.
Yeah, thanks for that answer, man. I mean, it was cool getting to look at your story because, I mean, it's growing up with one main parental figure in your life. I've been very blessed and fortunate to have two great parents in my life. But you said in a previous interview, like you talked about your dad, you guys called him, what is it, Mufasa, the Lion King.
Yes,
He needs you guys to be men. But looking back now, I guess in hindsight, because you talked about how big of an impact football had on your life, how do you think your life might have been different without football? Because you said that was sort of a place for you to channel that anger that you felt growing up with not maybe understanding everything that's going on with your life.
right. Yeah, so I think one of the main things that football did for me is it gave me structure and it gave me discipline. There was always an association with working real hard in results. And so I was a result oriented guy. So I always was told that if you work hard, you'll get the results. And I got to see that uh, in football. And you know, if I learned my plays and if I went hard, I would always see the results. So I mean, I just fell in love with the game. And then, and more than anything, I saw how the game um, changed my relationship with my dad. Now, I love my dad. He's a Lion King. He taught us how to be men, and it was a bunch of boys, and I have a sister, and then I've got some step siblings. But my dad raised us to be strong and dominant, and football really was his love. I love to see him in the stands, or I love to see him after the game. How people responded to him as a result of what we were doing. It just made me proud to make my dad proud.
Yeah. Amen, bro. That's a powerful story that you have there. So I want to talk a bit more about you've spoken before about being fascinated by the question why, and maybe some of your circumstances growing up led to that question, but how much did that search for answers shape you into the person you've become today?
Yeah, it probably 99.9%. You know, I realize now, you know, I'll be 58 years old tomorrow. I'll be 58 years old. So I've lived a significant life. And but growing up, I always wondered why things happened the way that they did. You know, why was my mom not there? Why did I not have the same type of ability as my brother? Why? It was constant questions, and those questions really led me into the field of psychology. And so when I went to Middle Tennessee State, that was my major, psychology. And then also, um, as I as I started to grow as a young man, um, I felt like I didn't really have purpose. And so my junior year at Middle Tennessee State, I was struggling. I was not the starting receiver. I felt like I should have been starting, and I didn't know why. You know, everything I'd learned up to that point. Well, if you work hard, then you get the results. I'd done all that stuff. The stuff that worked for me before wasn't working, and so I'm asking the question, why? And so that year is really when I grew in my relationship with God, because I believe God was the one that could answer my questions. And so, you know, um, I was living somewhat of a dual life. You know, I would go to church on Sundays, but you know, I do my thing on the weekend, and during the week I was just kind of a church going guy. But I think God put me in a position um, where I needed to jump in with 2 feet. I needed to be totally committed.
Mhm.
And so instead of asking the question why, I started I basically just started surrendering, saying, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? You know, I changed from the why to the what. Okay, all right. You got me this far. What is it that you want me to do? And I surrendered, really. I surrendered my life to Christ that junior year. I joined Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I became the president of Fellowship of Christian Athletes and started speaking. Now, at that time, I definitely was not one to do any kind of speaking. Always really shy, and but God had done so much in my life that I had something to talk about now, and He used the platform of football to propel me into ministry. So the why question led me to the what question, which is now, what is it that you want me to do?
Yeah, one thing I found particularly interesting about your story is that you said you never originally intended to become a pastor. You said you were fascinated with education and you had a desire to teach people how to teach. So you told a story about a cleaning lady that would come into your office and call you preacher before you ever actually became a pastor or ever actually had that real desire. I couldn't stop thinking about that. That was sort of amazing to me. Looking back, do you think that was God preparing you for something bigger in your life?
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, I could see all of the different mile markers and see God was
Mhm.
constantly preparing. You know, even in the fact that my mom wasn't there. By the way, my mom um, ended up being one of my heroes. You know, I wanted to know why. In fact, I asked her when she got out of prison. I was a grown man. I was married, but when she got out of prison, I wanted to know why she wasn't there, and to
Yeah.
constantly asking that question. And
Mm.
man, and she just came clean. She told me about the decisions that she made. She didn't make excuses for them. She owned them, and so we became really really close before she passed away. And she became one of my heroes. I had a different type of respect for her because she wasn't a victim. You know, she didn't blame her past on her decisions. She owned them, and I loved her even more because of that. But Miss Sylvia was a lady when I was working
Yeah.
at Middle Tennessee. Sylvia was the cleaning lady, and she actually happened to be the pastor's wife. And she would always call me preacher, and I never really had a desire. Now I had a zeal at that time. I had a zeal for God because He
Mm.
had done so much for me, and but I never had a desire to preach. I was in a great church. Pastor David Talbert. In fact, I talked with him last night.
Okay.
He was an educator. He was living in Nashville at the time, but the church was in Murfreesboro, same city that Middle Tennessee is in. But I just never had that desire to preach because I watched him, and I watched mainly how people treated him. He did so much to try to build people up and serve people, but they beat him down pretty good. And I said, no, I don't want any parts of that. If I got to choose something, it's not going to be that. Why
Yeah.
choose something where people don't appreciate you and they're
Yeah.
going to beat you down for trying to serve them? So I didn't
Mhm.
want any part of that at all. Now I didn't have a problem with going and teaching. Um, Now when I was in grad school, I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but this goes to my education. When I was in graduate school, um, the education light bulb came on for me, and I, for the first time, I really enjoyed learning. I'd never really been challenged to learn. Education at that time was for me was more of a rote. Remember these facts and remember this information. Remember this formula. So it was more rote and learning as opposed to reflective decision making. But when I went to graduate school, my professor, there were two in particular that really, really challenged me to think. And for the first time, I started to think about what I thought about. And I
Yeah.
started to process information a whole lot differently because um, I, for the first time, enjoyed learning. And so I wanted to teach teachers how to teach. In particular, my style is more of a kinesthetic, hands-on learning style. So I wanted to teach teachers how to teach in all the different styles so that they can maximize the ability of their students. And so back to Sylvia and what she did. She challenged me um, when I finally committed to preach. Miss Sylvia, the first thing she asked me, she said, "So where are you going to seminary?" And I said, "I didn't really know. I had no idea that black people went to seminary." So I said, "Miss Sylvia, black people don't go to seminary." And she said, "Well, sure they do. Well, sure they do." And she took a book out of my bookcase and showed me a book. Chuck Swindoll was one of my, still is one of my faith heroes. I love his teaching. Um, and she pulled his book out and she turned to the inside and she says, well, he went to Dallas Seminary. She started mentioning people like Tony Evans, and my eyebrows got, went up. I'm like, well, he went to seminary. And so Tony Evans is the first African American to receive his doctoral degree from Dallas Theological Seminary. And so I listened to him on the radio, listened to David Jeremiah, some of the solid, what I believe were solid Bible teachers. And when she mentioned they all went to Dallas Seminary, I said, well, if I go to seminary, that's where I want to go. And so that's what led me into to seminary. Sylvia challenging me to go to seminary. And she was just a cleaning lady, quote unquote, just a cleaning
Yeah.
lady. She was there by divine appointment. God sent her.
Yeah. Man, it sounds like she was persistent, huh? She didn't flinch at all.
She didn't.
That's
She didn't.
crazy.
When she said, sure they do. And then she gave me the book and she started mentioning these people, and so I did some research. I started looking them up, and back at that time, it was more you got to call in and get a catalog. It wasn't, readily available on the internet. And so I did some research, and I said, well, I'm going to apply to this school. And it is a, high caliber school. I didn't think I would even be accepted into the school, to be honest, because they have some brilliant, really, really brilliant minds there, and I didn't think they would accept me, but they sent the application. I filled the application out, and then the ball started rolling. And a long story short, I stopped working on my doctoral degree, and my wife and I were headed to Dallas, Texas, um, to go to seminary. Let me share this. I think this is worth sharing. Um, Now, my wife and I had been married like 7 years at that time. We tried to get pregnant, but just wasn't happening. The doctors had actually told us, we might even consider, adoption. So we stopped thinking about, getting pregnant. But when I went to visit Dallas Seminary, I decided that, okay, I'm going to go check this place out and see what it's all about. And when I went down there to see it and determined that, hey, listen, this is something that I think the Lord wants me to do. And it was at that time that we found out that my wife was pregnant. And so my son was born in Dallas, Texas. I believe he was a gift from God
Okay.
because of my obedience to go and prepare for ministry.
All right. Well, let's shift now to now that we have a good idea of your personal journey and what that was like going to Middle Tennessee State, going to seminary. Let's shift to your role with the YSU football team, because you have a very unique position that seems to sort of combine what you do outside of football. It brings together football, education, leadership, and ministry all into one place. So, for listeners who may not be familiar with what your position looks like with the team, what does the role of director of player development look like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so basically, my role is to help these young men grow into mature men. It's to take lion cubs and make them lions, just like my dad did with me. My role is really to be there to help them navigate through the decisions that they make, not just football, but help them navigate through life decisions, choices, help them learn accountability. I'm not there to judge them. I share a lot of my life with them, a lot of the mistakes that I've made, and so my role is primarily to challenge them to be the best uh, person that they can be. And I don't carry a Bible around. I don't preach to them. I just try to be there. Like this morning, I may have talked with maybe two or three young men, but being there, um, I want to be there, and I've learned that over the years is that I've got to earn the right to be heard. So when I show up in their spaces on a day-to-day basis, I don't know what or who I'm going to talk to for the most part, but I'm ready to engage them in whatever they tell me. I've had young men with addictions. I've had young men with mental health issues where I've walked with them through those difficult times, death of, in families, you name it. I've walked with these young men and just try to be there to encourage them when life gets tough. And life doesn't stop happening because you play football, but you learn the principles of how to deal with life through the game of football. So I love that platform. Coach Phillips is an incredible man. I wouldn't be there doing what I do if it weren't for him and if I didn't have the type of respect that I have for him.
Yeah, your background certainly makes you, like the right person to connect with these guys. And you said it, man. It's important to be there because fans will see, what happens on the field, but there's a lot more, like there's life there, right? And you're there to be there for those young men. So we've talked a lot about relationships, leadership today, which naturally kind of brings us to team culture. From your experiences with, whether it be with church, with schools, organizations, just throughout your career, what are the signs of a truly healthy culture?
Yeah, that is a really really good question. Um, I think transparency is absolutely necessary for health in any organization. In fact, I wrote a book entitled "The Cancer-Free Church," which directly
Hmm.
addresses the culture of the church that I pastor now. And we had a culture that was cancerous. We didn't even really know that we were cancerous, but culture is something that's developed uh, over time. It's the kind of it is the this is how we roll. And so culture building, some of the signs of a healthy culture is um, known expectations, um, um, expectations that can be um, achieved, honesty, being honest, especially like when you're thinking about football. If you're going to have a healthy culture, the people who miss it, they got to say, "Hey, I missed my block. I dropped a pass." So honesty with yourself, um, um, the willingness. A healthy culture has a culture uh, where there's openness to uh, criticism. As a leader myself, I'm not perfect, and there are people who speak to me, and there's some who can tell me, "Hey, listen, you were wrong right there," and that makes me healthy. So when it comes to any organization, I'm on the school board, the Youngstown City School Board. We have a healthy school board. We don't all agree, but we put the information out there. We make the best decision based on the whole, and that's healthy.
What are the signs of maybe an unhealthy culture from your experiences?
Um, an unwillingness to confront what we perceive as error. Um, when something is wrong, leaders have got to step up and um, confront it. When there is no confrontation, there really is no growth. And you'll continue on the wrong path, an unhealthy path. But I think most healthy organizations, leaders don't shy away from healthy confrontation. I think about Bo Brungard, who's an incredible leader. One of the things that makes him a great leader is he doesn't have a problem confronting people when they're not contributing in a way that's helpful to the whole. And so I love that about Bo. Coach Phillips, Coach Phillips would take ownership for our losses. And when we win, he gives the credit to the guys. That's healthy. So um, leadership is not always, hoisting the leader up and running around the field with that person. Most leaders don't want to be hoisted up. the great ones actually want to lift other people up, and that's what makes for a healthy culture.
All right, so you've had the opportunity to look at this Youngstown State team. What have you seen from this current group that maybe gives you optimism heading into the season? That can be from a culture standpoint, just whatever you feel like talking about there.
We've got some, on the defensive side of the ball, we've got a new defensive coordinator. Um, Guys are flying around. I think we maximize the talent and ability of the guys that we have. Um, I think our young guys are very, very coachable. The older ones are much more hands-on with training the younger ones, and so we're pretty deep at several different levels on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, defense wins championships, and so I see that as
Mm-hmm.
um, very, very good coming up this season. And then, of course, on the offensive side of the ball, we continue to be pretty powerful. Our running backs are, we're 5, 6 deep. Any of those guys can go in and have a breakout game. Of course, we've got Bo. We've got second and third quarterbacks their names are not known, but they're really, really good also. It's hard to replace, Max Tomzak, somebody like that, but we've got some depth on our receiver core. Um, Offensive line is, of course, we're solid. You've got Dez and some of in fact, I think we have our whole offensive line back with the exception of Jason Williams. And so we also have a new special teams coordinator. I see a lot of effort put into our
Yeah.
special teams, and that makes a difference. That makes us the three-chord chain really is not easily broken. So I'm really, really optimistic that we'll be a really, really good team. I think the mindset also is something that has changed over the years. I've seen the mindset. I don't see as many um, negative attitudes that can actually turn into cancer. I don't see that as often as
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it in the past. And so I'm pretty optimistic that we'll be pretty healthy this year.
Yeah, thanks again for sharing all those answers, man. This has been awesome. One last question for you. So we've talked about football, faith, education, mentorship, purpose, but at the center of all those things seems to be your desire to invest in people and to serve other people. When your career is over and people reflect on your impact, what legacy do you hope you've left behind?
Yeah, I will hope that people would say, I will hope that Pastor D helped me learn what my purpose was. I'm very intentional about pushing purpose. Um, I know that I have a lot of fulfillment in life because I understand what my purpose is. I know what I'm here for. And so every day when I get up, it's no question about what am I here for. I know what I'm here for. So
Mm-hmm.
I can do what God has wired me to do every day and come home. I don't have to make a whole lot of money. I don't make a whole lot of money. But at the end of the day, um, I want to hear God say, well done. I want I feel comfortable knowing that, I'm fulfilling my purpose. Happiness is fleeting, it comes and goes. But I just want to be remembered as somebody who really, really made a difference and fulfilled his purpose. And my purpose is to build people up and help people understand what they're here for. Wanted something, and I'll say this in closing. I got a phone call on yesterday from a former player. I've had the privilege of being able to marry some of the coaches that's been here at YSU. I married quarterback um, a few years ago, um, and Mitch Davison. I married he and his wife. They asked me to marry them, and I got a call yesterday from a young man, and he told me, he says, you changed my life. And I never really was
Wow.
intentional about changing his life, but it's good to know that my presence makes a difference in somebody's life. And that's no amount of money you can pay to have that feeling.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect place to stop, Kenneth. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show today. This has been awesome to see where God has put you in your life to be in the position you are today, to have that impact on young men, really on different age demographics with your work through the church as a pastor, influencing young kids on the school board. So I appreciate you taking the time. And again, thanks for joining me, man.
Man, I appreciate it, man. You're an incredible interviewer.
All
Keep
right.
doing what you do. This is a part of your purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was excited to get you on, man. You've been great to talk to. I loved meeting you at spring practice about 2 months ago. So it's awesome to get to connect with you. And I look forward to staying in touch with you in the future. So
Yes. Yes, sir, man. Blessings to you. Keep doing the good work.
amen, brother. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for this edition of the Penguin Nation Fans Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to leave the show a 5-star review and continue to support the podcast on social media. For now, I'm Gino Leone. That's Kenneth Donaldson. And as always, go Gwins.